Okay, so this next one is going to blow people's minds, and since I've been on the internet since 1997, let's not forget that, and I've been in front of the computer since about 1991. I have had the privilege of these things because of my father's tendency towards first adoption. Being a very smart man himself, and a lot of people don't give him credit. They really don't. They look at him like he's a freaking psychopath, a Christian psychopath. But a lot of people don't know what a psychopath looks like. You understand? I gotta do something to you. And then again, after the fact, they don't show remorse. They'll fucking knee you in the face and then go in for the kill and then laugh at you afterwards. Now you see, brutality, physical brutality is a marker of the tendency, the lack of impulse control, okay? And the drive, the prey drive that is still in the person. This is an evolutionary advantage. And it's not wrong. It's not wrong to have that. We need to have that killer instinct in us. This is how we've survived this long as a human family. And where I go with this is that the human family, and I've said this in other videos as to why I think the out of Africa theory is complete, utter BS, right? And this substantiates to something like, okay, why I don't feel like racism is real, because there's a basis for in-group preference, and there's a basis, an evolutionary basis for monogamy, right, versus polyamory or promiscuity, because it ensures genetic, security. And because it takes so much effort, it takes 9 months for a woman to bear a child. That's a very long time in the animal kingdom to gestate a new child, a new birth, right? So considering the survival elements and the development of community, that's why, for security of the very children, that's why you get the phrases and the terminologies through the oral history in English, in terms and idioms like "it takes a village to raise a child," or anything like that. Me and my arrogance saying these things, but I've been around a lot of very smart people, and I've been observing people for a very long time, and so I understand the differences between the different cultures, and there's different physical markers that differentiate us. And if you want to get even more scientific, like if you say, like penis size and testicle size and height, and like different morphologies and expressions of male and female, that's where the confusion starts in the cultural differences. And if you look at nature and you look at apes and their family tree, and how they're basically our cousins, and we share so much of our genetic interrupting cow. Moo! I just pressed the button, and so I'll stitch this together. Anyways, so yes, we share so much of our genetic material and data with apes, and same with, and also pigs. We share. It's what is it that the figure's like 98 percentile, if I remember correctly. So again, the family tree. If you get biblical, and you want to have a literal interpretation, because the Bible is a written account of oral tradition, and a lot of the books don't have an author, a specific author, because they might have not had names, or they might not have cared about that, about what's the person's name, who's the author, right? Why even bother? Why it's Genesis, it's the beginning of all things. Every culture has an origin story, and for a good reason. Because it details where we come from, and we need that. I need to have a history from beginning to end, and we can't have any interruptions or misinterpretations of the facts. Because you fill in the gaps, and you start filling in the gaps, then you get results that you don't want. There's a widening and a space that exists that is unrealistic. Let's put it that way. Because okay, so the way that I see it is that there's five human families, and I've said this in another video. I'm talking about including Africa, China, Northern Europe. So you're talking about Czechoslovakia, or Eastern Europe, then South America, and I would say like the plains. Well, they come out of there. And I said China, didn't I? Yeah, 4 or 5, something like that. India. Let's put India in there. Southeast Asia. That's most likely. And so, because this shows through on the skeletons of our predecessors, our ancestors, and there's the differentiation of Homo sapiens and Neanderthals and how we coexisted at the same time. And this is where different things in the culture and the basis of eugenics comes from, where you have this low brow, right, and phrenology, and trying to discern who's the smart person, whatever, by whatever science and hypothesis that they had at the time. But it's not always true, right? It's just the best guess. That's what a hypothesis is, because as the science goes, it goes hypothesis, theory, and then law. Okay, so the theory of evolution, it's not a law of evolution, because it can't be confirmed. Correct me if I'm wrong about this, please. At least have some sort of discussion about it, because there's no more secrets in the age of the digital frontier, right? All of these people that covet the information, get out. We don't need you. We don't need you. We don't need you to covet the power, and we don't need you to sit on this information, and we don't need you if you're not going to be part of society. So moving forward with this, I know that by saying a lot of stuff that I'm saying is inflammatory, right, and can be interpreted as a threat by stupid people, because they want to hold on to this. They want to hold on to this little bit of control that they have, this little bit of money or resource that they have. But I don't believe in coveting information. I don't. Right? It's not in me to do that, because information is currency, and I'm going to put it all out there as best I can, because I'm sick and tired of being taken advantage of. Aren't you tired of being exploited? I am. I truly am. And I will teach anybody that wants to learn. And so I'll put it on my page, and I know it'll get backed up upon server upon server upon server for the rest of time. And there's nothing you can do about it. So anyway, so there's the coexistence of, as is the history, right? I remember this from like Scott McDonald and Quirks and Quarks, like from years ago on the CBC. And like another part, if I'm going to go to personal relationship here with the CBC, I've been listening to classical music since I was a child, like, just off the ground, honestly. And I remember, and if we're going to talk about the Bible and bring that back into the conversation, as it being one of the first writings of oral tradition, that I read the Bible from front to back when I was a kid. Is this a serious accomplishment for a child? Okay, I was in grade school. I started reading it as soon as I was like 12 or 13 years old, 10 to 12 years old. I didn't necessarily understand everything. I didn't need to. And I remember listening to the Bosnia conflict happen at the very same time. So, the war in Bosnia was a war of genocide, right? It was fought between Muslims and Christians. And being one of the cradles of humanity, right? The people, like the women from Eastern Europe are attractive for a reason, because of the exchange and the geography that happens there and the mixing and so forth. They're very strong genetics, and so don't chase the squirrels, okay? Leave them alone. They're freaking anxious. Look at them. He's like, the squirrel's taunting my dog right now too. I'm staring right at him. He's like, you're not gonna get me. He's wagging his tail. Like, yeah. Okay. So, okay. So, Zoe, stop it. Stop it. Because what was it? What was it? The markers of intelligence. We were talking about the two coexisting species at the same time within a certain context. I can't give you years or anything like that, but it'll give you the general story because, well, that's what a historian does. So names and dates. They're always saying about that, but I'm just like, the story is more important than names and dates. So like we got the internet now. But to give you the details to get certain points, okay, so that was in this general time. Now go and look at it, please. When the markers of intelligence were farming, making beer, and making tools. You little bastard! He's fat little screwball there. Oh my goodness. Man. My dog wants to eat that squirrel. No, you can't eat it, Zoe. No, you can't. Anyways, yeah. There's this jealousy between the two species of humanity that still exists now, and because of epigenetics and genetic expression, this is where in the DNA and the mixing and so forth, where we get viruses and we get diseases and we get chronic conditions or disabilities from interbreeding too much. Inbreeding as well with insular communities, which becomes a problem. And then you talk about like royal lineages and being, obsessed about purity and so forth. And, say if we're a good example is in history is the Habsburgs. And, it's just absolutely obvious, not to pick on them, but, if you got to have these examples in order to understand how it actually all works, because the same thing happens with dogs, right? If you have a purebred species of dog, it's going to have certain issues, like German Shepherds. If they're they're not the American, I don't remember the American or the German one, they have hip issues, whereas the Labradors, when they get older, they have lipomas, and she actually has cataracts, right? Not that I'm going to show it to you, but there's cloudiness in her eyes, but it's just a part of aging. It just happens, degradation over time. Is it the same with genetics? Okay, so there's degradation over time, and especially if there's too much interbreeding, then we all become gray and the same. And the best part about human experience is the diversity of character, culture, and genetics. Because otherwise it's freaking boring. Like, I don't want to eat vanilla ice cream all the time. It doesn't make sense. It's not my preference. Not to make that any more disambiguous. Don't interpret that any more than just as the example, because people can misinterpret my words as all else, as they always will. Because, well, I'm putting this on the internet, so fuck it. Yeah. Okay, so if you want to look at the example, you have what was it? Chimpanzees and bonobos. Okay, so that's a really good example of a comparison between Homo sapiens and between Neanderthals or Homo erectus or whatever else that were coexisting at the same time. Putting this through. This is a lot of secrets. These are trade secrets to a lot of people, and it could destroy them. I really don't care. We can't do this anymore. This is for our own survival altogether. We have to go against the people that covet the information and covet the resources, because if we allow them to continue on with this, they'll blow up the sun, and they'll drive all of us into the digital dark ages, while all of their servers and their communication means are in hardened bunkers under these earth, in mountainside server farms and whatnot, and they'll airburst a freaking nuke and take out all the satellites, or they'll send a nuke into the sun to cause an EMP. This is the reality of things as it is right now. People are that freaking crazy, right? We're losing all of our sense of reason right now. We have to stop doing this, because what society is built on the backs of both men and women, right? This decadence that we have is from when we talk about trade, that's another sign of intelligence: trade of information, trade of resources. That is the basis of humanity, and trading of culture and so on and so forth. Going further, and so you have this jealousy, and this is where we have such a rarity. And I'm going to relate this to autism and other neurodivergencies, because they're adaptations. They're not disabilities. They're actually hyper abilities that we've been trying to medicate and suppress for years, because someone wants to profit off the backs of someone else's suffering. This is the basis of all slavery. You do the work, I do the control. Don't tell me what to do, I tell you what to do. You don't know what life is, you just do as you're told. Going forward, so back to the original premise. If you think about the behavior of people now, and you think about watching the human family and our interaction, and especially on the internet, right? All these different interactions, it's absolutely exhausting. Observing people and their behavior when they're anonymous, when they feel like they have nothing to no social inhibitions and so on and so forth. They have no boundaries. They have no respect and whatnot. Counteracting these things is a path to ruin. Censorship and so forth. The path to hell is paved with good intentions, kismet gone wrong, etc. I wish I had a beer right now. I really do, but I don't. I got some globalism right here. Whoopsie. Some sun-kissed tangerines, right there, Mandarin, USA. Probably straight from Florida or the California. Let's put this a little bit to the left there. Not that I'm a little to the left. I'm trying to be centered as possible if we're going to talk about political compasses. There's a lot of basis in correlation of intelligence to jealousy and fear tactics, because again, if you think about this, the intelligence being associated with farming and implementation and sedentary lifestyles versus nomadic, because if nomadic means you have to roll with the punches. You have to go with the change of seasons, and you have to follow the herd, right? The herd of buffalo. You have to follow the deer, or any other game, and hence why those cultures have, and those genetic families have a tendency towards higher protein diets and more fat gathering on the body and so on and so forth. And this is why it's different. And there's genetic markers in each of these families and predispositions. As I said before, say if, comparing us to dogs. No, I'm not letting you out. You're not going to chase the squirrels. You were just out earlier. Goodness gracious, I took you for almost 8 kilometers earlier today. Chill out. Okay, well, I guess I'm letting the dog out. Yeah, so there's got to be there's where the warfare starts is the jealousy, having the resources versus not, for survival at least. For those families, okay, so they see a farmer and a sedentary society that's more peaceful, because they say the emphasis on it's the Neanderthal society. This is my theory that they were the first ones to really start and develop farming, and while the sapiens were still living in caves and having rudimentary structures, shelters to chase after. It could be the other way, right? Like I'm not a true anthropologist. I just know I have a lot of information and it gets mixed up sometimes. So bear with me here. I know I'm like looking down here. I'm talking like it's like I'm talking to myself. I should look at the camera. Hey. Oh goodness. Not that I can solve the world's problems, but I can at least, stimulate some conversation about where all of our problems come from and why we have conflict in the first place, and why do we have slavery? Because slavery and usury is the root of all evil. It is, and it's the demise of all humanity. It was what collapses worldwide civilizations every single time. Every single time. Invasion from outside. So, like the barbarians in the Roman Empire, like after the collapse and the split, Byzantinian and Constantinople, east and west Rome. Yeah. And by disseminating this information, I'm really not trying to, obliterate people or intimidate any of you who watch this. I just want you to feel how I feel, and how I feel with having all this information in my head. Because, the fact that so few people actually know this is a problem. It's a modern day disaster piece. Okay? And so, okay. So nomadic tribes would raid sedimentary tribes and then rape and pillage to ensure genetic dominance. I'm not going to say it's not supremacist, because we've always been doing this to each other as humanity. And it's always been about resources. It's always been about ensuring who gets to reproduce, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to cut it now at 20 minutes because I think this is stimulating enough, plus the other video, so about 25 minutes. And I encourage you to do your research. I encourage you to find further answers, because the modern day conflict, as it always has been in humanity, is the haves and the have-nots. And there's a historical and genetic and cultural basis for our conflicts. And this is why, in principle, it's good to have borders and have boundaries and have trade agreements, but not to the degree that we have them now, and not the hierarchy that we have now, because it's a problem. Because when too much decadence inspires hedonism, it inspires homosexuality, right? Again, not to attack these people. It's just a symptomatic of having too much prosperity, because when we have too much prosperity, the birth rates go down, right? And that's a problem. It's a problem. But things have, and then also what's cultural dominance and the propaganda. So again, correlating to the history of propaganda, because these are weapons. This is weaponized art. And you know, so again, another demonstration, another follow through with my thesis here. You know, having to do with the history, because loop it back around right from the very beginning. And again, I encourage you to do your research, because this is entirely fascinating, and this is our story. This is our story. Good luck.